Hello, this is Joshua, the tendonitis expert, and the topic of this video is trigger finger. So, trigger finger is a form of tendonitis. It's a little tricky that way in that with trigger finger, generally the problem is right at a joint. So we don't really think of it as tendonitis. But the fact is, when you have trigger finger, you have factors from fingertip to elbow that are all playing a role to create a problem right here. It looks like the problem's here, but this is really just where the problem ends up. So let's break it down a little bit. Trigger finger is a problem where you lose smooth range of motion, and it'll look something like that, and then all of a sudden it'll click straight. So the reason for that is because right here, and we'll say this is the joint affected, right here there's buildup of the tendon, there's buildup of the connective tissue, there can even be buildup of bone. Bone will actually grow to meet the tendon, and that's a problem. So if you're experiencing issues where you're losing range of motion, where a finger doesn't open smoothly, and then it clicks or pops, and or you have enlargement of a joint right here, then that's looking at a trigger finger dynamic. The causes of trigger finger are any kind of repetitive motion over time, but there's also nutritional issues as well. Diabetes is a big factor there as well too. You don't have to have diabetes to have trigger finger, but if you have trigger finger, it's safe to say there's a few factors involved. One is muscles are too tight. All the muscle that controls the tendon, too tight, constantly too tight. So that muscle is constantly pulling, and that's constantly putting tension on the joint. So that's one factor. Another factor is connective tissue. The connective tissue of that tight muscle compresses, it constricts. So it keeps things stuck. Muscles get tight, connective tissue shrink wraps, and then it's stuck that way. Literally the muscle can't relax. So chronically there's tension, and the finger always has to work to try to straighten itself out. One aspect of that is there's constant tension. And the body shapes itself to the stresses placed upon it. So if you have constant tension right here, the brain is going to tell the body to make that stronger. So it's going to make the tendon thicker, it's going to make the tendon sheath thicker, it's going to make other connective tissue that attaches all around there thicker, more dense, and like I said, it can have bone actually grow and develop in that direction. That's why when you have that kind of gnarled look where the joint is all big and bulging out, that's actual bone growth. Clearly that's a problem. With trigger finger, you can pretty much stop the progression at any point. You can minimize it depending on how bad it is. If you have a big gnarly bony knuckle, you can't do a whole lot about that. But if you just have some buildup or hardening of a tendon or a little bit of growth of a tendon, you can totally stop the mechanism and you can reverse the mechanism. Just all depends. Even if things feel pretty hard, you can do some specific work to soften them up and get things better. I've worked on several people who have bony buildup, not necessarily bony buildup, but cartilage buildup, connective tissue and tendon buildup. It feels hard. They have definite problems with range of motion. You do some specific and the right kind of work on it, and you can get full range of motion back, even though all that enlargement is still there. So it's a little bit of trial and error, but with the right kind of work, you can stop the mechanism and you can decrease the mechanism and get full range of motion back. It's very important to stop the mechanism, because if things keep getting worse, then you'll continue to get less and less well operating joints, and over time that's a big problem. So there's more information about trigger finger on the page below. There's a link right here, and or if this video is on the page, on this page there's a lot of information, and it'll send you off to pages with other information. It'll describe how the tendonitis dynamic works, it'll tell you how trigger finger develops, and it'll start to give you some things to do about it. So if you have trigger finger, it's very important that you deal with the factors that are causing the trigger finger to stop the mechanism. You don't want to let this go. So get to work!